News Central now at this hour begins with security matters, where we understand that the defense headquarters has said a notorious terrorist kingpin in Jigawa State, known as Mai Hijabi, has been killed in an operation conducted during the week. The DHQ said this was part of its effort to destroy the fighting capacities of terror groups across the northern parts of the country. The Director, Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, disclosed this while briefing journalists on the activities of the troops during the week. He noted that a total of 165 terrorists were killed and 238 suspects were arrested. Buba added that troops also arrested 35 suspected oil thieves in South and denied the oil theft of the estimated sum of 688 million naira. Let's head to politics now, where the Board of Trustees of the People's Democratic Party has asked the National Working Committee of the party to urgently convene a National Executive Committee meeting to address the crisis within the party. Chairman of the PDP Board of Trustees, Senator Adolphus Wabara, made the recommendation at a meeting of the board in Abuja on Thursday. Wabara also urged all that are invited by the party's disciplinary committee to freely present themselves to the committee, stressing the supremacy of the party over any member. According to him, the Board of Trustees held a significant meeting with the Governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, in August, where issues around the political situation in the state and its effect on the party was discussed. Away from that, the House of Representatives has rejected a motion on urgent public importance seeking the intervention of the federal government in the chieftaincy tussle rocking the Okpela community in the Esako East local government area of Edo State. The motion was moved by the member representing Esako East, Esako West Federal Constituency, Edo State, Dekeri and Namero. Addressing the House during Thursday's plenary session, Anamero lamented the loss of lives in Okpela owing to the violent reaction to the crowning of Lukman Akemokwe by the governor, Godwin Obaseki, a fortnight ago. As it were, the presentation of a staff of office to Akemokwe has not gone down well with the people. Consequently, while those in favor of new king are celebrating, those against his choice have made their position public, a development that led to the outbreak of violence in the cement town last week. Let's now tell you that the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has rejected the new increase in petrol pump prices, saying it will further deepen poverty in the country. Now, in a statement, the NLC president, Joe Ajero, said it will further deepen poverty as production capacities dip and more jobs are lost with multidimensional negative effects. He urged the government to immediately reverse this rate hike as previous increases did not produce any good results. He adds that the Congress is dismayed by the latest increase in the pump price of petrol. 16 Nigerian states, led by the Kogi state government, have taken the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, to the Supreme Court, challenging the constitutionality of the laws that establish this agency. The states are contesting the EFCC's authority to investigate financial dealings within their territories. They argue that the EFCC Establishment Act goes against the Constitution, claiming that when the EFCC Act was enacted in 2004, the provisions of Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution were not followed. The Supreme Court has scheduled a hearing for October 22, 2024, with a 7-man panel of justices led by Justice Uwani Abba Aji set to preside over the case. Dele Oyewale, head of media and publicity at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, appeared live on Breakfast Central and had this to say.
You know, when the matter is before the court, elementarily, we know that that is sub judice, we should not talk about it. But be that as it may, the overriding need for us to strengthen our nation against every form of economic and financial crime cannot be overemphasized. If we leave the pyrotechnics of the law, the technicality of the law, whatever argument anybody may want to canvass, the truth of the matter is corruption is real in Nigeria, and it has to be tackled. So let's allow the courts to decide. But you and I know that we need to move a step further. We need to do something. The narrative has to change. The paradigm has to shift. We must not continue the way we are. And that is what the commission is doing. So whatever might be the argument of anyone or group of individuals concerning that, well, let the court decide. But it is obvious that as a nation, we need to fight corruption. It is a matter that cannot be debated. It is a matter that is beyond any controversy. So if 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, 50 people, 1 million people go to court and say that, no, the EFCC should not be allowed to function, we all know that that will not be in the overall interest of the nation. So let's allow the courts to decide.
President Bola Tinubu has expressed concern over the rise in cryptocurrency fraud in Nigeria, driven by the growth of virtual assets. Speaking through Vice President Kashim Shettima at the 6th EFCC National Judicial Institute workshop in Abuja, Tinubu highlighted the increasing complexity of financial crimes due to technological advances. He urged the judiciary to enhance its capacity to handle these evolving crimes. Tinubu also reaffirmed his administration's commitment to improving judges' welfare, citing salary increases and housing provisions. He praised the EFCC for its asset recovery efforts and emphasized initiatives like the Students' Loan Fund and Consumer Credit Scheme aimed at reducing financial pressure on deterring cybercrime. To discuss this, we're joined by Silas Umekwe, author, Crypto Investors Playbook, on online business consultant. Thank you so much for joining us, Silas.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Silas. Can you tell us how significant is the rise in cryptocurrency fraud in Nigeria? And tell us what are the factors that are driving this surge?
Well, if you say there's a surge in cryptocurrency fraud, then it means that you are actually thinking that there's cryptocurrency fraud going on. There's fraud in everywhere. We just finished talking about EFCC right now. EFCC is not talking about cryptocurrency fraud. There's fraud everywhere, right? So the fact that some few people are taking advantage, of the decentralized nature and pseudonymity of the crypto space to perpetuate fraud doesn't mean that it's in that rise, is on the rise, as it were. However, that our country is one that would always want to look for where to point fingers at. However, yes, we are not going to say that there's actually no case of fraud. Just recently, we've seen quite a number of cases, yeah. But these cases are not what cannot be handled. And one of the things that has led to these fraudulent cases continuing is the fact that we are a country that we only make laws, we don't enforce them. We make laws, we don't do anything. I mean, I don't see us taking any step or any measure to enforce laws that have been created. We have SEC documents, we have documents of digital assets from Ministry of Digital, and the rest of them. We have even the CBN, and we have so many materials or documents that have been created.
Okay, Silas. Now you said that these cases are not cases that cannot be handled. Now, can you speak to us on some of the challenges that you think that the EFCC or even the judiciary face in handling complex financial crimes involving virtual assets?
Okay, first of all, handling complex financial crimes is not something that's... I really don't understand what the challenge is, basically, because, one, if you do a financial transaction, this transaction is traceable on the blockchain. right? And because we have most times everybody that wants to, or most people that want to go about liquidating their cryptocurrency funds would have to use a centralized exchange. And these centralized exchanges, a good number of them, if not all of them, have KYC protocol in it. So it's just a matter of letting the court go to the centralized exchange, give a court order, provide the user to this wallet address, and give us the information. And it's that simple. These things can be tracked. The blockchain is one of the most transparent financial ledger system in the world, right? So it's just a matter of getting the people that know what to do to go after it, right? Okay, so I think just recently we had an issue. A friend, his grandmother was kidnapped, and they requested for the ransom with cryptocurrency, some Ethereum, right? Yes. When the money was paid, I was able to track that, okay, this money was paid and this person liquidated this money on so platform, right? But before we could go to the court, get any of the other, the woman was killed. Now, but what am I trying to say? Basically, these funds can be traced. Okay. The blockchain is completely traceable.
Okay.
So it's, if you just need to get the right set of people, the people that know what they are doing, and all these things can be traced. But that's not the only way that this fraud go on, right? I think if you've just recently, we see most of our celebrities releasing their own token, right? We see Ichok, we see the video token, we see Sabi coin, we see Brain Jota token and all of that. All these coins, there's really no use case, there's no value that they are bringing into the space. So all these things, when people invest in it and their money goes down the drain, is that not also cryptocurrency fraud? Yeah, so these are the things. But if we can create measures that would check this, and these measures can actually be created.
All right, now, Silas, now the president did say that, initiatives like the Student Loan Fund and the Consumer Credit Scheme is aimed at reducing financial pressures. I don't know what you think about this. Go ahead and tell us, if you feel that these initiatives indeed reduce or is actually working in reducing cybercrime.
Student loan funds reducing cybercrime. I don't see that reducing cybercrime at all. I don't see that reducing cybercrime at all. And the reason is, with all these initiatives we have, we are not going to see cybercrime reduce. And the reason is because we are not tackling these things from the roots. If you want to reduce cybercrime, let the youth, the people that are involved in this cybercrime. Now, if I want to use cybercrime now, the word Yahoo, right? Now, if you want to target this, give these people, okay, let me give you an instance. You want to do a transaction online, you want to pay with your card and the rest of them, and you cannot pay for certain things with your card, right? You cannot pay, you cannot even buy something on AliExpress with your card. So all these small, stringent measures that have been used to block the Naira, everybody is going to be looking for alternate source of making cryptocurrency payments. And also, as long as there is hunger in the land, unemployment is at the highest height. We are still talking, just recently, you just showed that the fuel marketers are complaining because of the hike. NLC is complaining that increase in the hike in pump prices. All these things are the things that are causing the increase in fraud. Not just fraud, we have increase in almost every criminal activity. Recently we are seeing ritual killing and the rest of them all over the West. 14 years, 15 years old children are getting involved in killing and maiming and beheading people. Right? All those things. Okay. If we can go back to the drawing board, as a matter of fact, if cryptocurrency can be properly regulated, it would help in reducing the crime.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Because thank you so much, Silas, for taking time out to speak to us on this.
You're welcome.
We go on a break now, and when we return, can Central Bank of Nigeria maintain 5% borrowing limit? We'll tell you more after the break. Join us again. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Nigeria's economic reality is shifting as the Central Bank of Nigeria tightens its grip on government borrowing through the Ways and Means provision. The policy, intended to curb inflation and promote economic stability, could have profound effects on public spending, business operations, and the lives of ordinary Nigerians. News Central's business editor, Nasir Agbalaya, takes a closer look at the implications of this policy in the context of 2024.
The Ways and Means advances from the Central Bank of Nigeria have long allowed the Nigerian government to borrow directly from the Apex Bank to cover budget shortfalls. In recent years, this has escalated significantly, raising concerns about rising public debt and inflation.
Advances are made to the federal government with the assurances that when some receipts in terms of revenues are due, those advances or overdrafts can be repaid.
For businesses and citizens alike, the real question is how the government will cope with reduced access to easy financing. With inflation eating into household incomes and businesses struggling with rising costs, the government's reduced borrowing capacity could push it to make tough decisions on taxation and spending.
The effect, if you restrict government borrowing in this manner, the effect is that you will also help to manage the money supply in the economy. If you restrict money supply from being arbitrarily increased, then you are helping to manage inflation, which is the general rise in price levels. So the impact will be to help us manage inflation, to help us moderate inflation.
Nigeria's small and medium enterprises, which make up the backbone of any economy, are particularly vulnerable to these economic shifts. Many SMEs are already grappling with high operation costs and reduced customer spending due to inflation.
Businesses that could not, sort of survive or, weather the storm had to shut down, meaning that there were jobs that were lost in the process. Government also lost revenue that would come in form of taxes.
There's growing skepticism about whether the Cardoso-led CBN will be able to enforce these borrowing limits strictly, especially as Nigeria faces ongoing budgetary challenges. In the past, similar financing policies have been circumvented or outright abandoned when they became politically inconvenient.
But the truth is that nobody has been brought to book. There is no deterrent that has been set in place to ensure that this sort of anomaly doesn't repeat itself.
As Nigeria faces an evolving economic landscape, the impacts of these fiscal policies will be closely watched by businesses, investors, and citizens alike. Stay with us for continuing coverage of Nigeria's economic outlook in 2024.
The Central Bank of Nigeria has signed memoranda of understandings with foreign regulators to enhance oversight and coordination of Nigerian banks that operate subsidiaries abroad. This initiative aims to ensure that Nigerian banks follow local and international regulations, promoting greater stability in the banking sector. News Central's Igbalani Omoni provides more details.
It is anticipated that the MOU will improve oversight and cooperation between Nigerian banks and their overseas subsidiaries. This entails putting in place early warning systems, risk-based oversight, and frequent stress testing to preserve the stability of the financial system and ultimately strengthen the economy. Economist Muda Yusuf praises the proactive approach but stresses the need for tight compliance to maintain the economy's growth trajectory.
The central bank doesn't have offices all over the world. They can, because of subsidiaries, be opening branches here and there. The whole essence of regulation is to ensure that the banks are transparent and that they play by the rules in the interest of the larger economy. So what I think should happen, or what I think is happening, is that the CBN is just strengthening its regulatory effectiveness.
This development is related to the order issued by the CBN 6 months ago, which increased its control of banks' compliance with the recapitalization directive and mandated that banks satisfy new minimum capital criteria.
Even though the actual reason behind this policy is to ensure a sound and stable financial system and a strong one that can withstand shocks, like you said, there might be some downsides, even though it might not be as significant as the pros. Some of the downsides that we can see is, first of all, local investors, they are faced with the local challenges, right? With respect to inflation, with respect to high cost of doing business, right? So they might not have that additional capital to invest in these banks. Another challenge that might occur is if some of these banks are unable to meet up with this threshold for their current license arrangements, what we're going to see is that they are going to have a downgrade.
The prior order by CBN was to ensure banks had enough capital to weather economic downturns. With the MOUs in place, the CBN can now monitor activities outside Nigeria. The MOU is expected to boost stability and growth in the economy, and experts believe the CBN's approach will be critical to preserving the resilience of Nigeria's banking sector as it continues to evolve. In Lagos for News Central, I am Igbalani Omoni.
Thank you, Igbalani, for that report. Now, Nigeria's federal government has been tasked to collaborate with youth groups in achieving effective climate action for the country. This was during a summit in Abuja, which was aimed at equipping youths with adequate skills to understand the nation's climate action plan and implement same in communities across the country. Amadin Uyi reports.
The summit had in attendance youth-led civil society organizations as they presented their work around climate action and shared their achievements. The session, which is designed to foster collaboration, learning, and mutual support among the groups, aimed at equipping the youths with the skills to understand Nigeria's climate action plan.
This program, which is empowering youth civil society organizations to build stronger communities in Nigeria, is training youth organizations to understand Nigeria's climate action priorities and the role that they can play in the implementation.
Today at this event, what became really clear, one thing that was mentioned every time again, for me was awareness. And I think it's becoming increasingly visible that awareness is a huge factor in the work on climate change. So this means that even though the effects of climate change are quite real, even in Nigeria, and we can see them and experience them, lots of people are not aware that these are actually the effects of climate. So we heard in one presentation that all throughout August there was no rain, and people were wondering why is there no rain, but they were never connecting it to climate change. Because
some of the groups say the summit will place young persons in Nigeria at the core of the nation's climate action plan, making them part of Nigeria's change process. They also called for more collaboration with governments in a bid to tackle problems resulting from climate change.
The good thing about where we are right now is that there's more awareness. Young people are paying more attention. I mean, young people make up 65% of the population in Nigeria. And imagine if we had that population actually raising awareness about climate change, we'll be in a better place come COP29, and which is what this summit is about, getting young people to be involved in the conversation, to be part of the change makers who are going to be there, be part of the policies that would, be in place when Nigeria goes to COP29.
So far, we've been getting little support from the government. We've not gotten the kind of support we want. And you know that, like they say, young people are the bedrock of any proven or growing society. So it means that for us at Enugu, we would like for more partnership with the government, right, to be able to get to the final solution a bit better.
We have a lot of green grass emissions. You see a lot of dump sites, and in those communities you don't have like a specific dump site where that people can come and they can pack it, and also maybe recycle that. So those are one of the problems. We also have a lot of problems in terms of flooding, where we don't have proper drainage systems, and right now we are now also working with Ministry of Environment and to see how we can be able to solve those kind of problems, and these are just local context issues that we are trying to solve.
Participants at the summit say they hope to form a synergy that will help the nation achieve its climate action goals. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
The Kuka Center has raised an alarm over an impending danger likely to occur due to the poor state of dietary practices and the current nutritional status of some citizens of Nigeria. This is as the center mobilized faith leaders across Nigeria for a strategic national dialogue on nutrition. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
These are clergymen and women synergizing to finding lasting solutions to the current critical issue of malnutrition in the country, which is currently affecting 37 of the children in Nigeria. It is the World Bank's funded Accelerated Nutrition Result in Nigeria Strategic Dialogue, being hosted by the Kuka Center in Abuja. The leaders have been empowered to take the lead in spreading the information on the accessibility of basic food and childcare nutritional services in the country.
Despite the conflict in Maiduguri, according to UN, Maiduguri still has one of the highest number of children. So even in violence, we are still giving birth to children. And within this population, about 37% of our children under 5 years of age, are suffering from stunting. I was just mentioning to one of the presenters, in 10, 15 years, if something is not done, the whole of my area, we may end up with a generation of dwarfs.
A situation where our children compete at a global standard because they've been fed right, and we understand the economic situation and the issues of food security in the country.
Omolara Olagunju is a consultant family physician and faith influencer. She maintains that if urgent steps are not taken to tackle malnutrition in the country, there will be consequences.
Of course, the immediate effect of poor nutrition is having children or young adults who are stunted, who are underweight, who are wasted. But that is the one that you can see now. In recent times, research has shown that when people are stunted as children, by the time they grow up, they are then predisposed to other non-communicable diseases. Talk about the diabetes, the hypertension, the obesity, and that eventually puts a lot of burden on Nigeria.
Because we are worried about the future of Nigeria, particularly in areas and regions where there's intense conflict and is conflict infested. People are not really feeding properly, and we don't want to end up with a generation that is completely stunted. Their potentials are not realized, and they end up with all kinds of sicknesses, and they cannot contribute to productivity.
From this level, we gather other leaders and transfer to them the knowledge we have obtained from here, and then they transfer to other people till it goes down to the grassroots level.
The center said it will continue to leverage on the influence of faith leaders in the country in driving nutritional changes in Nigeria. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Old age is often attributed to God's blessings for those who attain it for being upright. However, the challenges old people in the society encounter daily makes one wonder what sort of blessings abound in being old. News Central's Chinwe Ugele reports that the wife of Abia State Governor Alex Oti, Priscilla, recently hosted some elderly persons in the state. Take a listen.
In 2020, the population of Nigeria's elderly was put at 9.4 million, yet majority of this population is challenged by malnutrition and inability to access healthcare due to lack of funds.
To meet our finance is the major challenge now.
Some elderly say life as old people is not easy in many fronts. At the 2024 Older People's Celebration in Omaha, Abia State, wife of Governor Alex Oti, Priscilla says government is committed to making the aged happy.
We are deeply committed to ensuring the welfare and dignity of you all, our older citizens. Under the leadership of my dear husband, Dr. Alex Oti, we have prioritized your well-being. Your well-being. And I'm proud to announce that we have ensured the prompt payment of pension, like you know, for our elderly
keynote speaker at the event, Ugochukwu Korafo, says older people ought to choose wisely the lifestyle they adopt.
You can choose to be a dependent, or you can choose to be a producer, or the
They, however, shared their challenges. Wife of the governor also disclosed that government already set up a mechanism to make access to Medicare easier for the elderly.
That we are able to reach out to them and then reach out to each and every one of them as much as we can, particularly assessing medical care, which is very critical. The Abia State Health Insurance, there's a scheme for them specifically, especially the senior citizens, and the government is providing the funds for that to enable them to be able to assess, the care that they deserve or they need.
For people who care more about daily meals, how can they pay attention to the quality of food they consume? In Umaya for News Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Welcome back. Mozambique opposition presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane has called for people to embark on a protest in order to defend democracy. This comes a day after the Southern African nation held a presidential and legislative election, which the ruling Frelimo party was widely expected to win. Wednesday's general election in Mozambique are being marked by accusations of irregularities on the part of the opposition, with no significant incidents reported and observers highlighting popular participation.
Temos que estar na rua a reivindicar e a defender esta pátria, porque esta pátria está por fio. Tudo está alienado, tudo está por fio. Ou a gente pega por esse fio, recuperamos o país, ou deixamos o país cair em definitivo no precipício, no fundo do poço. Agora, tudo está nas tuas mãos. Mas eu volto a repetir, uma vez mais, é hora de ir para a rua. É hora de defender a tua pátria. É hora de defender o teu voto. É hora de defender a democracia.
It's alarming to see how mental health conditions have surged in recent years, especially during the aftermath of the pandemic. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 1 in 5 adults worldwide experience a mental health disorder at some point in their lives. These numbers do not just represent statistics, they represent real people, real struggles, and the need for compassion and understanding. Annually, October 10 is a day set aside to raise awareness of mental health issues and encourage efforts to support those experiencing mental health issues. The day was first observed in 1992 at the initiative of the World Federation for Mental Health. To discuss more on mental health, we're joined by Buyiswa Mpini, a social worker. Hello, Buyiswa. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Now, can you tell us what trends have you noticed regarding the prevalence of mental health issues in the populations that you serve?
So in order to give context, I need to share that I work in South Africa, and I work mostly in poor socio-economic with poor socio-economic communities. And in the recent years in our country, especially in these communities, we have seen trends of rising, especially of depression, anxiety, and issues of substance abuse because of the mental health that is experienced by the communities that we are working with. In South Africa, for example, recent statistics shows that between 16% 30.5% up to 30.3% of our adult population has experienced some sort of mental disorder in their lifetime.
Okay. Now, but are there specific demographic groups that seem to be more affected by, the mental health conditions? And if there are, what would you say are the factors that actually contribute to this?
I think the recent years have shown that, especially post-COVID, a rising trend or in terms of demographics, like young people experiencing more mental health issues. And because in post-COVID, young people have found themselves outside the normal support systems that they get in terms of family, because their families have been under pressure with the loss of income. Young people found themselves having to cope more with the issue of online learning. And in the recent years in particular, young people have been found to lack the support from their peers that they normally get because of the issues that they are facing, in particular post-COVID.
All right, now, Biswa, you talked about, families being under pressure and, income as some of the challenges that lead to mental health issues. Now, in your experience, serving marginalized groups, how do support systems like family, friends, and community influence an individual's mental health outcome? Hello, Biswa, can you hear me? All right, we lost Biswa there. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us all the same. Still ahead. In other news from around the world, Hurricane Milton felled trees, tore roofs off buildings and flooded streets, leaving residents of the Florida coast surveying a trail of destruction on Thursday in a state still reeling from another massive storm 2 weeks earlier. Over 3 million Florida homes and businesses were without power after the weather front made landfall as a Category 3 storm on Wednesday near Siesta Key on the U.S. state's western coast. As the eye of the storm blew past the peninsula, communities were still contending with strong winds, heavy rainfall, and possible flash floods. Milton triggered tornadoes before its arrival, with unconfirmed reports of multiple fatalities after one twister struck a retirement community in Florida's East Coast. In business, the third African Monetary and Economic Sovereignty Conference continues in Addis Ababa, bringing together academics, policymakers, and thought leaders from across Africa and beyond to discuss pathways to economic sovereignty for the continent. Today, the conference delves into critical issues of climate change and debt restructuring. Let's hear some of the speakers of today's session.
The question of developmentalism, which was assigned to me, is really a question which has to be seen within this larger context. Very importantly, I think it is important to recognize that the conversation changed around the end of the first decade of this century, where we had the emergence of the recognition of the problems of sustainable development, and more importantly, the fact that the Millennium Development Goals were basically cooked up in New York by a bunch of people around the Secretary General's office, and basically offered to the rest of the world. Then we have the question of climate finance. You have a problem of climate finance where developing countries are struggling to adapt, Let's take, for example, Vietnam. There are 10 provinces in Vietnam where seawater is now in the rice fields. And unless that, and this is likely to affect rice production in the world, the rice market is very thin. And so the result of this is that you are likely to see higher rice prices.
Climate change has already happened in this part of the world, and how it has already affected the livelihoods of people, and how we can think through how to help those people to to survive economically by transforming their economic activities.
A case of Malawi, for instance, where the government took a loan from the World Bank to build a hydropower plant. Then at first the plant couldn't work because there was a drought. Then floods came and destroyed 30% of that plant. You know, it's left with a debt to pay and with no power to its people. And it's a case with Mozambique, with a debt alone it took to build a bridge that was destroyed by floods.
In the world of sports, the Nigeria Football Federation has rejected claims of poor treatment on arrival in Nigeria by the captain of the Libya senior men national team, Faisal Al-Badri. NFF insists the Libyan Football Federation created chaos for its own team, the Mediterranean Knights. NFF's Assistant Director, Protocol, Mr. Emmanuel Ayambumi, said the Libya Federation only informed the NFF that its team was landing in Port Harcourt and not Uyo only 3 hours to the team's arrival on Tuesday. Ayambumi added that the Libyan delegation jettisoned road transportation arrangements made for them by the NFF and instead hired buses on their own. And that's all on the news. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. We told you that Nigerian military kills terrorist kingpin Mai Hijabi, 164 others in Jigawa. We also told you that PDP Board of Trustees call for urgent NEC meeting. Finally, you heard that Mozambique opposition presidential candidate calls for protests. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen, Usman.